How's it going, guys? 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 This is Make a Naughty, 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 ASMR. And I really hope you guys are doing good tonight. I really do. I think about you guys a lot. I'm always checking in. I'm always reading the comments. I really am wishing you guys the best. I was sitting at work today and I was thinking, it's about time I made another video. What should I make my next video about? And it just so happens that I was reminded of one of the funniest blunders that I have ever witnessed at work. When you're brand new, you're always very worried that you're going to make everybody's lives harder. And one of the new employees today ended up doing that for everybody, so you just have to kind of take a step back and laugh. There's really not much you can do to avoid these kind of things. It just, in order to learn, you make mistakes, right? But anyways, I was sitting back and I was laughing a little bit because everybody was just smiling like everything was okay when really it wasn't. And it reminded me of a time a couple years ago that a much more large-scale blunder took place that affected everybody's ability to work. And so I'm just going to tell you guys a really funny story. It's a very funny story, and I worked in Alaska for a couple summers. My first summer there, I worked at a fishing supply store, and it was for commercial fishing, not for sport. So I sold gill nets and propellers and all that kind of stuff. And anyways, I could tell 1,000 stories about that experience alone, but it was my second summer that I want to focus on today. My second summer in Alaska, I actually got employed with a very, very large commercial fishing company. You've probably seen their products in your local grocery stores. They're very, very well known. They've pretty much got a monopoly on the salmon fishing industry, and so I ended up getting a job with them for my second summer. Something funny about working summers in Alaska is that you get placed in a crowd of people that could not be more different from one another. Some people that end up there are just people who really like to fish commercially. Some people, it's just a family tradition. Some people are full-time doctors or dentists or pharmacists, and they just want to get away for the summer and experience life in Alaska. And then you get the people who are avoiding the law and who have warrants out for their arrest, and they know that they can get away from being thrown in jail if they end up in Alaska. So those are the people that I spent my summer with. My job was pretty much to run errands, order parts, deliver the parts, make sure that all of our fishermen and all of their vessels had all of the supplies and parts that they needed to operate. So I worked as mainly a liaison between the administrative side of the business and all of the fishermen. And one of my co-workers was a so-called engineer. The reason I say so-called is because I don't think that he could diagnose a faulty part if it was staring him in the face. I don't think he could fix. I don't think he could change a light bulb. wasn't bad enough. He got hired as the engineer for our main supply barge. And this barge is massive. Maybe I'll even throw a picture on this video so you can see what it looks like. But what it is essentially is a floating gas station. Because once the salmon fishing begins, you don't want to be coming back to land to get supplies, to get toilet paper, toothpaste, coffee, whatever it is you're getting. So this company that I worked for bought an old retired World War II barge, and we stocked that thing full of supplies. I mean, if you've been to Costco, we probably could have cleared out like a decent chunk. There were a lot of supplies on this barge, and we spent weeks just loading supplies into this barge. Well, this engineer of ours, I'm gonna call him Dave. Dave was in charge of making sure that this barge had an adequate supply of water. Of course, you need water to survive, right? These fishermen need water. You need water to wash your hands, to go to the bathroom. And so, on the barge, we had these ginormous water tanks. And attached to these water tanks was plumbing that went throughout the entire barge. And there were spouts and hoses that the other fishermen could come and they could attach their boat to the barge, fill up with water, get supplies, buy things, and take off. It's a very convenient setup. But the engineer friend, I'm not even gonna say friend, the engineer coworker, it was his job to make sure that all of the water, all of the spouts, all of the nozzles, all of the connections, all the plumbing was functioning. And he'd done this before, is the craziest part. This was not his first time working on this barge. He was really old. Let me describe him. So he was like, I think in his late 60s. He was very old. He walked bow-legged. He had some injury that damaged his knee, and so it took him a long time to walk around and to get places. Even just being sober was painful for this poor guy. You're not allowed to drink on the job, but he always found a way to make that work. He was drinking all the time, and anyways, he's just this older guy, and he'd walked around bow-legged, and he was always grunting, and he was always cussing, and he was always half sober, half drunk. And I was just shocked that this guy had got the job. But anyways, eventually the day came when a fire truck arrived to fill our barge and the tanks with water. And so before that fire truck showed up, he walked around the entire barge. He checked all the nozzles. He turned all of the spouts and levers. And he's like, yep, this is 100% ready for water. We are ready to fill this bad boy up. The whole time I was following him around the boat, I was like, what about that lever? Did we forget that one? And he would look at it and he'd be like, oh, maybe we should turn that one too, you're right. And I very quickly caught on that he was not aware of what he was doing, and he had no idea how to prepare this boat to be filled with water. But he kept assuring us that he knew exactly what he was doing, and so we're like, well, he's the engineer, you know, I've never done this before either. So if he says it's okay, it's okay. And so the fire truck shows up. The guy is down on the ground, and at this point our barge is standing on arms that are raising it off of the ground, so we're very high up in the air. Fire truck is down below on the road. But it pulls up next to our barge. He tosses me the hose, and he says, just go plug this in wherever you need to plug it in and let me know when to start filling her up. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I look over at my buddy Dave, my engineer friend Dave, and I say, alright, where should we put this hose? And he's like, oh, I know right where to put it. Follow me. So he turns around and he walks towards these giant ballast tanks, and he says, plug her in right there. So I do. I grab the hose, I put it in the water tank, and I walk outside and I signal to the guy on the fire truck to start filling up the water tank. Well, I signal to start, and so he does. He turns the lever on, and the water starts flowing through the hose into the barge. And then at this point, my buddy Dave is nowhere to be found. So I turn around and I start looking for him. And eventually I hear a loud rushing water sound. And I walk into the room that the sound is coming from, and I see Dave. And he is staring at the water tank that's located in that room. And he was looking at it and he's like, why isn't this filling up? And I look behind him and I see that he forgot to put the cap on one of these pipes, and water is launching full speed pressurized water, and it is filling up the room. No lie, like he's standing in the water as it's rising, and he's not even aware that it's happening. It's right behind him, but he's staring at the water tank, just hand on his chin, like, weird, I don't know why this isn't filling up. And so I'm like, Dave, look behind you, you idiot. He turns around, he's like, what? That's not supposed to happen. And I'm like, yeah, no crap, that's not supposed to happen. So I turn around and I sprint and I run all the way to where the fire truck is, and I signal for the guy to stop the water. And so he's like, okay, and he turns it off. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be horrible. I really hope that the water has a way to get out. You know, it's in a boat. You know, I hope there's a drain. I hope there's a way for it to get out. I hope it didn't damage any of our products. This is probably gonna make our lives a lot worse. And not only that, but because the pressure wasn't being delivered where it was supposed to go, there were chances that it damaged other parts of the plumbing within the ship. And so I'm stressed out. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I walk back and I'm like, okay, Dave, the water is off. What do we need to do? This guy outside is being very patient with us, and we definitely cannot afford for this thing to start filling up with water again. He's like, well, I did another check around the boat, and I have determined that it is now safe. I put a cap in that one spot, and so no water's going to be flowing out of there anymore. I'm like, okay, you're sure this time? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm an engineer. Like, I've done this before. Okay, that was just a fluke. And so I was like, all right. So I walk up, go back to the fire truck, and I signal once again for him to turn the water on. This time he's like, are you sure you're ready for it? And I'm like, yes, I think we got it this time. So he turns it on. The water starts flowing through the hose again. And I make my way back into the barge to locate Dennis and to see if the tank is filling up. I walk into the room. Dennis is standing there, this time facing the opposite direction. He's staring to make sure that the plug that he had put in stayed secure. But right behind him was another uncorked hole. The water was launching out of this right behind him, and he had no turns around, he's like, oh, what the heck? I'm like, this is insane, dude. Where did you get your engineering degree? I thought you said you've done this before. And it was kind of funny the first time. The second time around, I was a little bit angry. But it was also still so funny that I couldn't help but laugh. And here I am just staring at this guy as water is filling up in the room up to his knees, and he just has no idea what's going on. And so I'm like, well, I'll just go tell him to turn the water off again. So I run up to the truck, I signal for him, and I say, turn the water off again. At this time, the guy's just like, what kind of clown, what kind of circus is this? Turns the water off, and I go and talk to Dave, and I say, Dave, you're embarrassing us. You're making us look like idiots right now. You need to get your stuff together, dude. Are we ready for water, or are we not ready? I can tell this guy to come back later. I can tell him I'll go out right now and say come back tomorrow. I just need to know we're ready before we tell him to turn it on again. And so Dave does one last cursory look around the room after plugging up the second hole, and he gives me the sure signal. He's like, look, those holes weren't there last year, okay? I would have known. Alright, I don't know who was putting holes in the plumbing, but somebody was. He's like, but I am sure this time that we are ready to start receiving water. And I look at him, I'm like, you promise me right now. He's like, I promise you, I'll give you $20 if I'm wrong. And I was like, alright, well, I'm gonna go signal for him to turn the water then, if you are sure. And he said, I am sure, do it. So I turned around, and I walked back to the fire truck. I signaled this time with a smile on my face just because it was kind of funny, but I was like, look, thank you for being patient with us, but I think we're ready this time. And the guy, he's just like, are you absolutely sure? And I said, yes, I'm pretty sure. And he's like, you're not absolutely sure though? I'm like, no, according to our engineer, I should be, but I don't trust him anymore. He's like, well, this is on him then. And he turns the lever. The water starts flowing through the hose. I turn around, walk back into the boat, and I get into the room where Dave is standing there watching the water tank. Lucky for us, there are no visible or audible leaks taking place. But that's also part of the problem, because we don't hear anything. There is no noise. It is completely silent. We should have been hearing the sound of water entering into these water tanks, but it was just dead silent. And then I was like, well, where is the water going, Dave? And he's like, you know, I honestly have no idea. And it was almost like it couldn't have been more comedically timed. But as soon as he raises his hand to like start rubbing his chin in thought, the pipe right above his head that was connected to the water tank explodes. It totally blows up with a lot of force too. It launches us, like we both go, wow, and it is shooting water. And I'm like, what the heck? Dave, what have you done? He's like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, there's something wrong with the plumbing, and water is just rushing in right at us. And I quickly run out and I signal to the fire guy and I say, I know that I look stupid right now, but I need you to turn off the water. And the guy at this point, he's like, I'm getting out of here, dude. I don't get paid enough for this. Turns the water off, gets his hose, and he drives away. And I'm just sitting there completely drenched. that says open and close. And of course, it was in the closed position, meaning rather than leaving a part of the plumbing open, he forgot to open it so that the water could get inside of the tanks. So the pipe right above the water tanks just got pressurized more and more until it eventually just exploded. And so, needless to say, Dave got fired. He got fired, and we ended up getting a new engineer who ended up being very competent, very good at his job. Someone who is worthy to call themselves an engineer. But nothing makes me laugh more than just thinking about that. It honestly felt like I was in a Saturday Night Live skit. I was like, you can't be this dumb.